Everybody, I am not here today, obviously, and so we're going to talk about camouflage and mimicry. Now, you don't have a fill-in-the-blank page with this, so you need to take a moment to get out some paper so you can write this down. So if my substitute will please pause this to give everybody a chance to get out some paper. Now, with camouflage and mimicry, you've probably heard of camouflage your entire life. You know that camouflage means things are hiding, it's hard to see them, and to mimic somebody means to copy somebody. Well, we're talking about evolution. Now with evolution, remember, these are mutations. These creatures were just born looking a certain way, and it was actually very helpful to them. As we talk about camouflage and mimicry, remember, most of these creatures have no idea what they look like. Okay? A frog cannot see itself. A frog does not know what it looks like. Okay? Bugs can't see themselves. Plants can't see themselves. They're just born with a mutation. They just happen to be born a certain color, or this insect happened to be born looking like a stick, and they are able to hide. Mimicry a lot of times deals with colors or patterns. And again, these creatures can't see themselves. They don't know what a mirror is. They have no idea of knowing what they look like. The key thing is they don't get eaten. So let's take a look at camouflage. Now with camouflage, this is an adaptation that allows an organism to blend in with its surroundings. Okay? So it basically allows the creature to hide. So it looks like a rock, or it looks like a leaf, or it looks like a stick. Okay? And again, these creatures did not mean to look this way. They were just born that way. They were born a certain color. It allows them to avoid detection. So if you lived in areas that were very snowy, you'd want to be white in color. If you're a white-colored rabbit, you blend in with the snow. If you're a dark-colored rabbit, the hawk can see you. The hawk's going to swoop down and eat you. Okay? Or if you're born in a very sandy environment, you want to be a brown color. If you're a bright red, you would get seen. Okay? And again, remember, these creatures have no idea what they look like. They don't even know that they're hiding. They don't know what color they are. They don't know what a rock is. They don't know what a stick is. They just aren't getting eaten. So this is a mutation of some sort that made them look the way that they look. So if they survive, they pass down that gene. The ones that get eaten, eventually that gene gets weeded out. So here's an example of camouflage. Okay? In this picture, there's a frog. Right here is its back leg. Here's another leg. Here's its hand. Here's its nose. Here are its eyes. Here's another hand. Okay. And again, this frog doesn't even realize he's blending in. He's just sitting there. Okay. He just happened to be born with these colors, and those colors just happen to blend in with the rocks. Now, if he was born with bright yellow, he'd be seen, a bird would sweep over him, and a bird would eat him. Okay. So he didn't get eaten. He passes on those genes. So if you were to take this frog and move him out to the forest, he'd probably get seen and he would get eaten. Same thing is true with this grasshopper. It didn't say, hey, I want to look like a leaf. It doesn't even know what a leaf is. It just happened to be born with a mutation. It just happened to make it look like a leaf. So if you're a bird flying overhead, you wouldn't be able to see it. Guys, right here is a crab. You got two eyes. All right. Here's another frog. Got the eyes here. Here's a back leg. Here's another back leg. All right. So these creatures are just born looking that way. It lets them blend in. If they blend in, they don't get eaten. Now that's different from mimicry. Mimicry, you look like something else. You're not trying to hide. It doesn't let you blend in. You just have a certain color or a certain pattern. Like you guys have been taught all your life, red means stop. Well, in nature, red usually means something's poisonous. So you just happen to be born with a red dot on you. Nature recognizes that red means it's poisonous. You just don't get eaten. Okay? So it's an adaptation which allows one species to resemble another species. So, butterflies. Viceroy butterflies are yellow and black. Monarch butterflies are yellow and black. Viceroy butterflies are poisonous to birds. They get sick. So as a bird, you learn not to eat any yellow and black butterflies. So if you just happen to be a yellow-black butterfly, that's not poisonous, you're not going to get eaten. So just remember, these creatures do not know what they look like. They just know they're not getting eaten. So here's a coral snake and a king snake. Right? They're both poisonous. Excuse me, one's poisonous, one is not. Okay? So they're both yellow, red, and black. Okay? And again, if you're a creature, you've learned to associate these colors with being poisonous. The scarlet king snake was just born looking this way. And for reasons unknown to him, things leave him alone. It's just because of his color. This is the moth. And if you're flying overhead as a bird and you look down on a tree and saw this, what would you think was looking back at you? An owl. You're going to leave this one alone. So with mimicry, you're just born looking like something else. You're not trying to blend in. You're not trying to hide. Okay? You have a color or you have a pattern that scares off things. Camouflage, you're born being able to blend in. Okay? You look like a stick or you look like a rock, so things aren't going to be able to see you.
Now at this point, your notes are going to continue on in your packet. Right? So you need to get your packet out, and we are going to turn to page 5. Okay? We're on page 5 of your packet. We've already done the left-hand side, so now we need to look at the right-hand side. All right, so I get all this stuff set up here. We're going to do some evolution. Right? So on the right-hand side of page 5 is where we are going to start. Right-hand side of page 5. Right. So, with evolution, remember we talked, you can see my outline on there. Hi, everybody. With evolution, we talked about how Charles Darwin came up with this idea of evolution. And so, how does evolution occur? Right. This snake did not wake up one morning and its legs had just fallen off. Right. Remember, natural selection states that nature is going to select certain mutations. And nature's going to see, does that mutation work? So, at some point in time, some lizard-like creature was born with a mutation, and it didn't have legs or arms. If you look at the skeleton of a snake, snake skeletons still have shoulder bones, they still have hip bones. They just don't have arms and legs. Those are vestigial structures. Remember, vestigial structures are structures we have but we don't need anymore. Well, mutations cause evolution. And so something is born with a mutation, and nature is going to either select that mutation and keep it around, or nature is going to get rid of it. And so remember, with the theory of natural selection, it was Charles Darwin, and this was the idea, again, that nature is going to select what works and what doesn't. So in the case of these moths, if you were in a birch forest where the bark is black and white, you would want to be the black and white moth. If you were in the forest where the trees had been burnt, you'd want to be the black moth. Okay? So natural selection from Charles Darwin is the idea that nature is going to select what works. Okay? And we talked about the different types of evidence. Okay? Remember, we had the fossil record, and we talked about how there's some areas where we're missing fossils. We can't find fossils from certain areas, so maybe something like a comet hit the earth and burn it up, or in the tropical rainforest it's just so wet, fossils don't have time to form. We also talked about homologous and analogous structures. Remember, homo means the same. So homologous structures are structures that creatures have that are alike because they are related. So in your arm, you have an upper arm bone called the humerus. You have two lower arm bones called the ulna and the radius. You have wrist bones called your carpals. You have hand bones called your metacarpals. And you have finger bones called your phalanges. Well, lizards have the same bones. They have one humerus, they have an ulna and a radius, they have carpals, they have hand bones, they have finger bones. Bats have the same bones. So with homologous structures, your structures are alike because you're related. Remember, that was what we called divergent evolution. We had a common ancestor, and over time, we became different creatures. Remember, analogous structures, the structures look alike because of the job they have. Like bats' wings are made from bones and skin. But butterflies also have wings, but they do not have bones, they don't have skin, okay? They don't have feathers like birds, but they're used in flying. Or we talked about the fins of a dolphin, which have bones in them, versus the fins of a shark. And remember, vestigial structures were structures that we still have, but we don't use anymore. Nature just hasn't gotten rid of them. Like our appendix or our wisdom teeth or our tailbone. We still have a tailbone, but we don't have a tail. Right? We can also study embryonic structures. Okay, remember I showed you a picture like this earlier. Okay, and how as embryos, you can't tell the difference between a fish, a human, right? But as time progresses and the fetus begins to change, so that leads us to believe that we all have a common ancestor. And then last but not least, now that we have the technology we have, we can do the molecular record. We can actually study the DNA and see how close the DNA is. Okay? And so forgive me, I'm not the most technological person here, but I'm doing my best. Okay? So when we talk about survival of the fittest, remember in nature, when we talk about fittest, we don't necessarily mean the most strong. Remember, fittest means which is going to fit best. Okay? Which piece of the puzzle fits the best. So in this environment, the lion would be the fittest because of his color. He fits the environment the best. He can blend in, he can hide. That wildebeest there is going to stand out. So survival of the fittest, it means the ones that work with the environment the best are going to be the ones that survive. All right? Now, on page 5, you're going to see some fill in the blanks. Okay, this is where we're going to fill them in at. Okay, or page 5 on the right-hand side. Okay, these are what we call variations. And everybody knows the term to vary means to be different. Well, remember in nature, nature wants things to be different. Okay, so variation is inheritable differences between organisms in the same species. Okay, so for example, in humans, we have different skin color, we have different hair color, we have different eye color, we're different sizes, we have different size feet, we have different size hands. These are all examples of variations. Okay? Now we all have the same organs, right? So that's not a variation. But variations are things that you inherit. Okay? In the case of the birds, it could be their beaks, it could be their feather colors. Okay? Right? But remember, adaptation, radiation, and divergent evolution are the same thing. That's where you have a common ancestor and you split off. Okay? But remember, nature wants things to be different. Right? Nature wants variation. Okay? Nature doesn't want us all to be clones of each other, because if I get sick, we're all going to get sick. If something kills me, it's going to kill all of us. Nature wants things to be different. Okay? Now on your sheet, you're going to see 5 sources. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to fill those in. Okay? You're also going to see a blank that talks about this thing called a gene pool. Okay? A gene pool are all the genes present in a population. So just like you and your friends want to go get something to eat and you just pool your money, you just count up all your money and see how much you have, and that will determine what restaurant you can go to or how much food you can buy at the store. The gene pool are all the genes in a population. So basically in this classroom, I would count how many big bees we have, how many little bees we have, okay? And that would give me a percentage. And that's going to allow me to make a prediction. And this prediction is something called microevolution. Now, evolution is a change over time, but it has to start somewhere. And so we can actually predict evolution by looking at what we call allele frequencies. Okay? Allele frequencies are percentages, so you might want to jot that down somewhere. Okay? Allele frequencies are percentages. So basically, how many out of 100%, if this room right now were 100%, if I was looking at hair color, how many people in this room would have a big B? That would give me a percentage. Or how many person in this room have a little b? That would give me a percentage. I can also look at how many people in this room would be big B, big B. How many people in this room would be big B, little b? How many people in this room would be little b, little b? Okay. So when we look at microevolution, remember the root word micro means small. So with microevolution, I can predict whether or not evolution is happening. Okay. So if I do a gene pool, if I count how many genes I have in this room, and if I come back tomorrow and I could count all of you guys again, if somebody's genes have changed, right? So instead of being big B, that person's now a little b, or instead of being a little b, that person's now a big B, okay? I can predict if evolution is going to take place, okay? And this is what we're going to focus on next week with some labs that we're doing, is how we can look at the gene pool of a population and predict if evolution is still going to happen. Right. So you have your 5 sources of variations. And we've been talking all along how mutations are the #1 source for evolution. Okay? Mutations are permanent changes in your DNA. So basically you've changed your recipe. Okay? So I always call DNA a cookbook, and I call genes recipes. And just like a recipe tells you how to make something, genes tell your body how to make something. Genes are recipes that tell your body how to make proteins. And so everything about you is based on proteins. Your hair color is based on proteins. Your bones are based on proteins. So we have certain recipes that we need to follow. And a mutation is where you change that recipe. So now instead of saying I need a cup of sugar, I'm going to make a cup of salt. I need a cup of salt. So I'm still going to make the cookie, but I made the wrong kind of cookie. And that's what mutations are. Now, not all mutations are bad. So maybe this creature is born and it has a different hair color. Well, maybe that hair color keeps it warm in the winter. Maybe that hair color helps it hide better than its parents. So this is going to what makes us different. And remember, nature likes things to be different because nature wants to see what's going to happen. Does being different help you, or does being different hurt you? And that's what natural selection is talking about. If being different helps you, nature's going to select that trait. Right? So that's the first blank you have. The next blank you have is something called genetic drift. Right? Genetic drift is a change in the population of each allele due to chance. And the key word there is chance. Okay? So let me give you this example here. Okay? So you've got genetic drift, a change in the percentage of each allele due to chance. Keyword there is chance. Okay? So let's just say there was this population of roaches. And some of the roaches were tan and some of the roaches were green. And just by chance, somebody came and stepped on the green roaches. So now most of the population is tan roaches. So most of the population would continue to be tan roaches. Right? Most of the population is going to continue to pass down that gene until the green roach gene might totally disappear. Well, it could have gone the other way. Somebody could have come and stepped on the tan roaches. So now the only roaches left were the green ones. Okay? That's what we mean by genetic drift. Okay? It's by chance. Okay? There might be an island, and this island, for example, Madagascar, it's the only island that has lemurs. Well, what if by chance a huge tidal wave came and wiped out the lemurs? Right? And so now maybe the only lemurs that were left alive were some really sick lemurs that were hiding in a cave somewhere. So those are the only lemurs allowed to pass down their genes. And so now the only lemurs that are going to be left are lemurs that get sick easy. Right? And so that's what we mean by genetic drift. Okay? By chance, something causes something to happen, like a storm or disease or stepping on something or people tearing down forest, and that's going to change a population, so that's going to change evolution. Okay? The third one we have is migration. Okay? Migration, as you guys all know, is the movement of individuals into or out of a population. Okay? So things can move in, things can move out. So what if we had a population where all the birds were red and then a bluebird moved in? So now we've added different genes, we're going to have variation. Or what if we had a population that was red and blue and all the red birds left? Okay, so that's going to change what's available. Okay, that's going to change, sorry I had to scoot up in my seat. That's going to change what happens with evolution. Okay. Number 4 is nonrandom mating. Okay. Only certain traits are desired in a population. Okay. This is, I don't want to say a problem with nature, but plants do random mating. Plants don't choose their mates. They basically release pollen into the air, and that pollen flies wherever it needs to go. Okay. Pollen is basically, for the lack of a better definition, plant sperm. Okay. Most creatures choose their mates. Okay. And in most animals, males are the pretty ones. So male fish are the ones with all the bright colors, or male birds are the ones with all the bright colors. When you see these peacocks, those are the males. Female peacocks tend to be small and mostly brown so that they can hide when they lay their nest. They can blend in so they don't get seen. Remember, that's camouflage. And so even you have a type. Okay? You have a certain look. You like people with dark skin, or you like people with blue eyes. You like people with red hair. Okay? So most things in nature do non-random mating. You pick certain traits, even if it's unconsciously. You have a look, you have a type. And so animals tend to pick what they like. Well, that's going to cause evolution, because that's going to basically weed out certain traits. It's going to get rid of certain traits. If you have a color that's not favorable, nobody's going to pick you. Or if you have a song that's not pretty, nobody's going to pick you. And so eventually your genes will get killed off. And the last one here is natural selection. Okay? Nature is going to select what fits best. That's survival of the fittest. So in this picture here, you can see birds with different types of beaks. And remember, the beaks of birds tell you what they eat. Okay? So if you're a bird with a beak like this, okay, you are able to stick your beak down into the flower and get out nectar. Okay? But if you are a bird, or if I were to take this bird and put it in the forest somewhere that doesn't have the kind of flowers it's used to eating, it's going to starve because it can't get food from anywhere else. Right? So nature will select what's allowed to live in that area.
Hi!
And there's my baby girl. And we are finished with this video. So at this point in time, you should have everything for page 5. And the only pages you should have left blank will be page 6.